originally from Paris. Actually, the neighborhood of Paris is kind of the ghetto. It's called Vitry-sur-Seine, and it's the most known city for robberies, basically. When my parents split up, I was 5. I remember everything. I remember the trauma. I remember the pain that I felt of them being separated. And then my mom, she became a lion. She had to raise me by herself. And she never had a job before that. You know, I was 5, she didn't have a job, and she started like working, getting her own place. Before, we used to live at my grandma's, and it was just like 7 or 8 people in that place. Basically, she moved out, got her own place, got a job, got her life together, and I became the responsibility that allowed her to excel. But when I grew up in the hoods, and my mom was raised with like 6 brothers, so she knew that even in the hood, your friends are not supposed to be your friends. So she didn't allow me to have anybody at the place. I couldn't invite anyone. So first of all, I was extremely introverted, and second, I couldn't invite anybody to my place. So that was very difficult for me to evolve in, but I understand why she did that, because people there, they're very ruthless. Even if they're your friends, they're gonna steal things from you. And there are some people that stole things from me as well. And then fortunately, when I was 9 years old, my stepdad got into my life. He started teaching me life lessons that I never had before, because you know, when you grow up, it's very important to have a masculine figure in your life, because they're gonna teach you how to behave as a man. So that was like one of the things that I realized, is that when he came into my life, he didn't try to push me all around. He understood the kind of person that I was, and he taught me lessons that I needed for me to grow and to excel in the things that I did. And then when I was young, I didn't get a chance to really understand what I wanted to do with my life. I always been interested in sports, because for me, moving was a way to express myself, because I couldn't express myself with words. I was extremely shy. So for me, doing a sport was a way for me to express it to the world. So at first I was playing soccer, I did volleyball, basketball. I was always kind of interested in every single sport, but then I got into Muay Thai, I loved it. My sensei allowed me to push myself, teach me a lot of discipline, a lot of hard work, a lot of like resilience. But you know, like I was always kind of doing that Muay Thai to also prove myself that I can defend myself and be confident and competent. But then I remember my first fight, I got into the ring, started fighting with the guy, and I did pretty well, as well as the training, but after like 30 seconds, got KO'd. I remember I was on the ground. I don't remember what happened. I stood up and I was like, what happened? I couldn't feel my teeth, and I was about to keep going, for me, it's just a fight. But what happened is that I got KO'd, my trainer threw the towel, and that was my first fight. I invited everybody. There were like 15 friends of mine, and I remember the only thing that I was extremely annoyed with, it's not just the pain that I was feeling, it was just like how disappointed I was by myself, but disappointed that I made my friends disappointed as well. That I talked to my sensei, and I was like, okay, I'm feeling a lot of pain right now on that left side. I couldn't feel my teeth, and he told me you should check it out. You should make sure that you don't have anything. Then we went to the hospital, and they basically told us that it was a cheekbone broken. Fortunately, I didn't have anything here. They went inside my mouth and fixed that cheekbone. So after that part of Muay Thai, I started getting into lifting a lot. My best friend was a big fan of bodybuilding. My friend Ashkan, he was so big into lifting heavy weights, building muscle, and I started getting into that as well. I wanted to gain more strength from Muay Thai. But then eventually I got into my first year of masters in San Francisco. And when I went to San Francisco, I realized that I don't want to make the same mistake again, which is breaking a cheekbone doing Muay Thai over there. So I started transitioning towards bodybuilding and more lifting weights. So when I went to San Francisco, I got extremely big. I was training every day at 6 a.m. for like 2 hours. I remember like eating a lot of different foods. In between my breaks at school, people were looking at me like, you're crazy. I was eating way too much because I didn't know what I was doing. But I was extremely passionate. And that's a theme that reoccurred in my life, is that I'm extremely passionate, but sometimes that energy gets too much. Like for example, with the food, I was eating way too much, but that allowed me to get extremely big. And when I got back from San Francisco, my friends were shocked by how big I became, but I started realizing that I needed to trim down afterwards. So I got back from San Francisco being a year away from my parents, come back, and I told them, well, now I just found an internship in London, and my ex-girlfriend was there at the time. So I basically told my parents I have to go away again So I went to London for about a year, and I basically studied computer science and also did an internship there. And when I was there, that's when I started Gymaholic. At first it started as a blog. I was extremely passionate. I wanted to share the knowledge that I learned, because in London I started running a little bit more. So that's why like Gymaholic was extremely good for me, because it was like me documenting my journey and sharing the knowledge that I've gained to the people. And so Gymaholic started as a blog, and then it became a company later on. And after I came back from London, London's a beautiful city, but it's not for me. I came back from London, told my parents I found a job in Toronto, and basically flew again away from them. That was really tough for them, but they understood that I found my purpose, I found my passions. So I went away, arrived in Toronto. And I started working for this workout app company, and that allowed me to build a knowledge about more, training and nutrition, being balanced with running a little bit more. And then I became more athletic here. So I spent basically for the past 7 years training in Toronto, meeting a lot of different people that are extremely extroverted, that allowed me to try different sports like volleyball again, and basketball, and lifting. And I was able to encounter a lot of different people that allowed me to grow to where I am now. And so that got me into that environment of being more than just a lifter. I wanted to become an athlete, and that's something I've always wanted to do. Having that athlete mentality, being able to perform in any activity that you apply your mind to. And that's what I started doing here. Started doing crazy things like cycling from Toronto to Montreal. It was basically cycling for like 16 hours and then sleeping for 8 hours. I did that with my ex-girlfriend. It was a great time, but it was very difficult. But after that, we realized that nothing is impossible. It's just really like a mindset. You have to push yourself toward that goal, and you have to align everything that you want to do toward that goal, and that will help you get there. And so now, 2 years later, things start to open up, and I'm realizing that I want to do something a little bit bigger than just cycling or just running. Now I want to combine everything together, and that's why I started training for a half Ironman. I always wanted to push myself physically, mentally, and spiritually on a yearly basis. That's something I've always wanted to do, and the Ironman is exactly that. It's just you pushing yourself swimming, you pushing yourself cycling, you pushing yourself running. It's you and your thoughts. There's no music to distract you. There's nobody's gonna try to motivate you. It's just you and your fear that you have to overcome. So the lessons that I've learned throughout my training is that there's nothing that you can't accomplish. The only limits that you have is the one that you set to yourself. So if you have a clear goal, work hard, stay consistent, and be humble enough to learn from your mistakes, you can achieve anything you want to achieve. So stop being scared and get after your goals.